Sometimes as part of my work, I go into school buildings and do consultations. And sometimes it's about an individual child, and sometimes it's consulting for an entire program or even entire building, thinking about how to improve things in the realm of supporting kids with emotional and behavioral disorders, supporting learning environments and things for kids with neurodevelopmental issues. It can be all kinds of things. But one of the things that always strikes me when I'm in these environments, particularly if I'm brought in for an entire day, is how unaware staff are of the connection between how they're feeding kids in the school food program and the behaviors and the learning issues that they are bringing me in to consult about. And so here's a great example. It's a common thing that will happen. I'll come in and I'll be in the school building first thing in the morning, looking at what's going on in the cafeteria, and you'll see kids eating for the school breakfast that's being served, things like fruit juices and Pop-Tarts or cereals, strawberry and chocolate milk, muffins, pancakes or French toast sticks with syrup, these kinds of things. And so kids are eating those types of things, and then they're going into the classroom and they're having difficulty with focusing and regulating their behavior, and they're impulsive, and they're, maybe struggling to get their work done. Some kids may be anxious, irritable, those kinds of things. And then they're in the classroom for a while, and then they have, maybe they have a morning snack, which tends to be, again, things that kids bring from home or things that the school provide that are pretty high in, processed carbohydrates, lots of added chemicals, added sugars, not what we would call nutrient dense, health supportive kinds of foods. Then they go to lunch, and the lunch that's being provided in the cafeteria can be things like pizza. The salad consists of like iceberg lettuce with some ranch dressing, ketchup and French fries, chicken nuggets. One of the worst things that I have seen, and I've seen it in more than a handful of cafeterias at this point, so it must be a thing that's fairly commonly served, is a bag of Fritos corn chips with like this chili dumped in it. It's like called a walking taco or something. I mean, just looks and sounds disgusting. These are the kinds of things that we serve. And again, I get that many kids, they rely on school food programs to, get their nutritional needs met. I understand that. This is not a knock on the people who work in cafeterias. Our entire way that we deal with feeding kids, putting our school food programs together from the federal government down to the state government and down to our schools needs to be completely overhauled, because it is not put together with the nutritional needs of kids in mind when it comes to how to help their brains function well. Just because you have a little checklist and you've, tallied out and counted up, okay, how many calories and how many grams of fat and how many grams of added sugar and whatever, does not mean that we're giving kids foods that are really supporting their brain and body. And, I just see it all the time. And then, parents and school staff, teachers are complaining about how much kids are struggling and not connecting it to what we're feeding them. And then let's talk about what goes on in a lot of classrooms with using food as rewards, particularly kids with behavioral challenges, kids with things like ADHD, autism spectrum disorders, those types of issues. Often what's going on is they're on these reward programs where they're being given candy, snacks like goldfish crackers, Starbursts, pretzels, you name it, all of these things throughout the day as a reward for good behavior or completing an assignment or whatever. And you're just going, oh my gosh, it's no wonder these kids cannot focus, they cannot learn effectively. They're not able to regulate their emotions and behaviors. We've got their brains on this blood sugar roller coaster all day long because of how we're feeding them. Now, I understand this gets into a whole lot of issues about choices parents are making versus school, picky eaters. Like, I get it. There's a lot of pieces in here. But fundamentally, what I think we need to acknowledge is that how we feed kids matters for not only their physical health and development, but for their brain health and development and their functioning in and outside of school. And when we are having kids who are going through their school day, drinking, sugary flavored milks and eating muffins and having, fruit snacks and goldfish crackers and being rewarded with Starbursts and M&Ms and, popsicles and whatever it might be, we have to expect that part of the fallout of that is going to be kids who aren't able to focus well. They're not able to regulate their physical energy levels well. They may be fatigued. They may be bouncing off the walls, more anxious, more irritable, all of that. That is something we need to expect if we're going to feed kids in that way in our schools. So I bring this up because I think it's something that we don't talk about enough, and it's something that everybody working in the schools as well as people outside the schools need to recognize, that how we're feeding kids throughout the day makes a big difference in their learning and behavior. And when we feed kids in ways that help keep their blood sugar levels more stable, that give them nutrient-dense foods that help to fuel their body and their brain, that's going to lead to better behavior, better learning, better educational outcomes for all kids. So that's just wanted to share some of my experience with that, of being in the schools, as well as somebody, who focuses on the nutritional aspects of what's going on with kids' brains and their learning and their development. I'd love to hear what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What have you noticed about the kinds of foods that are served in your kids' schools? What do you think the connection is? Share with me. Let's have a discussion in the comments.